Okay, welcome to the Spotlight with Shaun O'Rourke. I am back with Stu. Make sure you follow us on social media. Check out all the comments section below and the description for all the links to my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. Follow me. Today, Stu and I are going to be chumming it up, talking about Universal Studios and their feud with AMC. We're going to talk about rumors with the Joker possibly showing up in Matt Reeves as the Batman. We got Frank Grillo, who's going to be throwing in the towel on Marvel films in the future. Snyder Cut, Netflix, Space Force, cancel culture, Bill and Ted's excellent, whatever the hell it is right now, trailer just dropped. Let's get right to it. So it looks like the feud is over. AMC and Universal have put the gloves down. I said this. I said that this was all just either a negotiating tactic or some sort of BS. Because the Fast and the Furious franchise, that last one did like 1.3 billion or something like that. There's no way Universal is not going to want next spring or summer when they release, because they kicked down the release date for Fast and Furious, the Fate, whatever it's called. I don't even know. All the little catchphrases. And I was like, they're not going to want to miss getting into the largest theater chain in the country, AMC, all those screens. And so I knew that was all a bunch of bloviating because they were trying to figure out probably like what the percentage was going to be. Because I have a funny feeling a lot of these theater chains, because they're going to be cash strapped, they're going to try to renegotiate these contracts with all the studios.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm kind of conflicted on this one because I tend to err on the side of the studios over the presenters, the AMC, and I think my biggest thing is no one is saying we should get rid of theaters. I think the big thing was we want more delivery options because not everyone wants to go to the theater. And that's great that people do want to go to the theater. I like going to some movies in the theater, but there's a lot I would be happy to watch at home, and I'd be happy to pay the $20 to watch it at home. And so I think that's the thing, just giving people more options. And when theater chains are trying to protect their sort of, thing, I knew they were going to lose because they need movies. I mean, they both need each other, but I think the theaters need the movies more, the theater or the productions than they do like anything else, because that's their whole revenue. Whereas, if they make a movie, they can release it on video on demand, they'll make it on overseas. You know? So there's more revenue models for them, whereas the theater only has that one. So they kind of put themselves in a stupid situation instead of being like, how can we work together to make sure we both walk away getting something positive out of this? And they just seemed to like put their foot in the sand and be like, if you do that, we're going to not put your movies in here, which was dumb.
We're not going to put your movie. I know. Stupid. And so then AMC, it looks like, as long as they get up and running by July, they won't go bankrupt, because they had posted their last quarter was like over $2 billion in the red. And, there were rumors flying around that Amazon might buy them or something to that effect. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh no, if we get open in time, we'll be okay. Yeah. Or do you think maybe they were crying foul to try to get some sort of government bailout?
I mean, it could be. I mean, who knows what happens behind the scenes and what, public persona they put out to, like, you're always, when it comes to companies, I always, I don't always take them at face value, because, there's a lot, it's what they want the public to see or to get on their side or, whatever. So I tend to be a little more cautious and look for other sources when I see stuff from companies. Don't take everything just from what the company says, is the way I look at it.
Do you think maybe they were doing that to scare people to feel bad for them, to rush to the theaters once they open up again?
Well,
to try to support them?
I think that's kind of like, because there are a lot of people who enjoy going to the theater, and if you do. I mean, I do too. For especially the big movies like a Fast and the Furious, I would watch that in the theater. And I think it was just sort of them like trying to strong arm their position to the. But again, it was dumb, because like, okay, we won't put our movies in your theater. That hurts you more than it hurts us. Like at the end of the day, so
Well, let me ask you this. During this whole COVID-19 crisis, have you paid, 19.99 full price for any movie that's been released on VOD?
No, because they haven't put out anything I want to watch. Most of it's been garbage that would have probably not done well in the theaters anyway.
What I mean, you think the Scooby-Doo movie? I heard the Scooby-Doo movie made bank.
Well, that's a different demo. I'm not a kid. I don't really care about Scooby-Doo.
Right.
So.
They were probably having kid screenings in people's houses, sleepovers, spreading the COVID-19, and then everybody watches Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the kids' movies are a no-brainer because, again, I think like we've talked about before, it's very expensive for a family to go to the movies because it's expensive to get in, and then all the concessions, that's a lot of money. And especially with everything going on with a lot of people not working for 3 months, they can't afford to do that. Where they have an option to pay $20 and their whole family can watch it, that's going to be a no-brainer. So,
yeah, I mean, like you and I both managed movie theaters years ago in the 90s. Yeah. And, we remember the concessions are financially outrageously priced because what we would do is, you remember when we used to work for Carmike Cinemas, which AMC bought out all 1,200 Carmike Cinemas, and every night you'd have to count the inventory,
cups and bags,
and and bags, because they paid nothing for the Coke boxes. A box of Coke hooks up to the soda, and then they paid nothing for that because just for Coke to have the brand in all of the theaters, they pay. It's almost like the syrup is free. And then so basically you inventoried all your cups and bags. So I remember the small cups. Now this was back in 95, maybe 96. A case of small cups had 1,200 cups in it. I'm going to have to do some math here. And so you'd have a case of 1,200 cups. And I remember this was back in 1996 as a manager, our cost for the case of cups was $22 and some change. So let's do the quick math on that, on this one. 1,200 times 22. Is that right? 1,200 times 20. No, divided by 22. Is it? What am I? Is that what I'm trying to do?
Guy, I'm not the best. I'm not.
1,200 divided by 22. There. Oh no, I got it. I got it. No, and you don't have to edit this either because I'm trying to do this right. So it was 1,200 cups times 375, which was a small drink back then, equals $4,500.
Or was that a small popcorn? I thought small drinks were $2.25 or $2.50, and they went up in quarter increments.
Well, it did. It always went up every year in a quarter increments. Let's say right now, if you go to the store and you go to the theater and you go get a small drink, it's $3.75.
Oh, it's more than that now. Like if I go to the theater today, it's like $5 something. At least up in DC, it's like $5 something.
So let's just stick with the numbers I had. So we had 1,200 cups in a case, times 375 is $4,500 profit off the $22 investment. The Coke and the soda water is basically free because they do the marketing to get in there, to brand in there. So depending on the theater, you have Pepsi products or you have Coca-Cola products. That's branding. Right. They contribute that. Now, I think it worked out to be something like 15 cents. It only costs 15 cents to fill up one cup of soda, whether it's small, medium, or large. It's 15 cents. So the way the movie theaters make their money is they charge exorbitant amounts of money for concessions because they don't make money off the ticket price.
Not a lot.
Because obviously not a lot. It's something like, I think it was like 10 cents off the ticket price for the first 2 weeks. And then the second 2 weeks, it's 20 cents. And then the second set of, or the third set of 2 weeks, it goes to 30 cents and so on and so on. That's why they came up with the idea to build 16-plex movie theaters, because they used to just have 4 plexes and 2 plexes, but you couldn't make money off the ticket price until the movie moved from the center screens, the largest screens, all the way to the ends where you were making the most amount of money a month in of a screening for the ticket price. Now that's some movie math right there, or movie theater math that I haven't thought about in years. But it's one of those deals. And I remember when Sony, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, they renegotiated the ticket price and like set everyone nuts. They wanted something like 85% like opening weekend, and it was like unheard of at the time or something. Right. They flipped out. Do you remember when all that went down?
I vaguely remember that. But yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. I mean, because I remember that's been whenever I've had to explain to people is theaters make all their money off concession. They make almost no money off of the box office. And that's why your popcorn costs like $8 or whatever now.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you have to, all your payroll, your power and light bill, everything comes off of the concessions.
Yeah.
And then I remember reading a report at the end of a fiscal year for Carmike Cinemas, 1,200 cinemas all in the Southeast years ago. They don't exist anymore. And this was a stellar year when we had like Independence Day, the original Mission Impossible. There were just huge movies after huge movies that summer. And I think Carmike Cinemas only profited $20 million after 1,200 theaters. Right. 1,200 screens, and they only profited $20 million after all bills were paid. And that really was nothing because the box office that year was huge. Right. It was ridiculously huge. So anyway, I went off in a rabbit hole there with Carmike Cinemas, but you know, we talk about those days a lot because we had a lot of fun back then, managing movie theaters years ago. And you know, I still have friends that work, you know, part-time and stuff like that at some of the theaters. I've got friends that are managers of theaters now. So I hope that things get back to normal soon because those guys really need to get back to work. Yeah. And I want to see stuff on the big screen again. Yeah. You know, I'll wear a mask. Yeah. I'll put a straw underneath the mask if I need to get my drink in, you know, I don't mind. It's not one of my things that I ever worry about. Did you hear about the Joker?
I did not.
Being in the new... Yes. Okay.
I don't know anything new about the Joker.
Before we go about the Joker, I wanted to do a shout out to my friend Mark McCoy. You know Mark.
Oh, yeah.
He listens to the show. And he's always texting me after it airs. And he's, oh, but what about this? Or what about this? And great guy. And he also does custom 3D printing.
Amazing
and
stuff.
He made
amazing stuff.
Yeah.
He does amazing.
Yeah. So I have a Dodge Avenger, and I wanted like a logo for it, like the Avengers logo to put on it. And he 3D printed, and I still have to get these, you know, I gotta polish them up and then spray paint them black, but because my car is white. Yeah. But I got these to go on the doors.
That's rad.
So I'm totally stoked about that. I wanted to just thank Mark. He's always a gentleman, and he's always got your back, man. He's that one guy you can always depend on. I've got other friends like my friend Barrett that is very unreliable.
Oh God.
I don't know. I know he listens, so I just wanted to throw him under the bus a little bit.
Yeah, and you know,
okay. So getting back,
just for Barrett, you know, they killed Starbuck. I know he'll laugh when he hears it, but I can't believe they killed Starbuck. It's an inside joke between him and I, so if he's listening, he'll get it.
Okay. The Joker apparently is gonna be in the new Matt Reeves Batman, but it's a whole new Joker. So the whole thing with Joaquin Phoenix and sequels with him and maybe tying him into the universe at some point or something, not gonna happen. They're casting a new person as Joker, and that's the rumor. And you know how this is with these superhero film rumors. They either have weight to them or they don't.
Right.
And so, you know, it looks like that this might be something solid, and we may have an announcement coming soon on a new Joker. What? First of all, like the first thing that popped in my, I couldn't think of anyone that could play him.
I mean, again, it's hard to follow Heath Ledger, and I think Joaquin Phoenix did an amazing job because it was such a more. I always used to say what I dug about the Heath Ledger's Joker was it was more realistic. But I think with what they did in Joker was if someone really was mentally ill, this is what it would look like. So I do think for authenticity, that's probably what a Joker would be like in real life, the Joaquin Phoenix Joker. But
yeah, I agree. And I waited a long time before I finally saw that movie streaming. I didn't go see it in the theater because I didn't want to buy into the hype and then get disappointed. And everybody was like, it's good. And you know me, I always, it's a rip off of a couple of different Scorsese films. And yeah.
I mean, as a realistic depiction of the Joker, it was good. As a comic book fan, I didn't love it, because I'd rather see something. That's where I feel like Nolan walked that line perfectly, where it grounded it in reality, but it still felt fantastical. Someone could do this, but it probably never happened. And they go a little beyond what is probably realistic in some of that, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was like a fun movie, and Heath Ledger was magic in that movie. And we saw with Jared Leto, like that was just for me a miss. Like I hated the whole whatever look that was going for.
And see, for me, I feel like with Jared Leto, we needed to give that time to breathe and see where it was going to go.
Yeah, true.
And even though the look was weird, but the tattoos, it's like he cameoed in one movie. Right? He was barely in Suicide Squad. And like for me, I needed more to see what Jared Leto was going to do. And unfortunately, it didn't go that way. And now he's doing Morbius. With, with Sony Marvel.
You won't see him do that again. So
yeah, he won't be coming back for Joker, which is a shame because it would have been. And if we ever get the Ayers cut of Suicide Squad, maybe we'll get. I know they're all talking about that now, but I doubt that's going to happen. Even the people at HBO Max said it wasn't going to happen either.
Well, because no one really wants that. Everyone was wanting. Everyone knew there was a version of the Justice League that existed or somewhat that was shot that needed to be finished. And especially as bad as Justice League turned out being, everyone wanted to see, well, let's see what this guy actually had in mind when he did all of it, so.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that leads me to something else I wanted to talk about. I didn't realize that, when Joss Whedon was hired to do the reshoots for Justice League, I didn't realize there's reports out now that he shot 80 pages. Now we all know feature film scripts are 93 pages and above. So he literally, I had no idea because like I kept trying, you heard during the whole battle sequence at the end that all they did was change the tint from gray to red so that it wasn't so dark. And that he only added the stuff with Superman and the little race at the end with the Flash and all this kind of stuff and the thing in the beginning with the whole mustache gate. But no, dude, 80 pages, that's a lot.
I mean, that's almost the whole movie. So clearly they shot
so what they're saying,
the whole movie.
and so what they're saying is we are going to be so shocked at how much of the Snyder cut exists
and how different it will be from the final product
and how different it's going to be from that's insane. And not just the color. Obviously, even Zack Snyder said they're going back with the color to his dark colors. But then you saw he put out the little picture with a dark side, what he looked like and a couple of things. And so, it's got me really interested. And if it's a series and it's 6 parts, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see what happens. I mean, I say Zack Snyder is one of the biggest cases of studio messing that I'm aware of or have seen the results of, where you had a guy with a vision and then they kept messing with it and then it kept messing up the end product. Because again, like we've said in the other podcast with Batman versus Superman, the Snyder cut, if you want to call it, or the extended version, is a way better movie. I still don't love what he did with Superman, but I understand how he got there because of that. And then
because of all the extra scenes with Superman,
and like the theater
where he was being a reporter, like researching everything.
Well, you understood by the end of the movie why he was so against Batman and why he was kind of going darker than I think he should have gone, to fight against Batman. But it makes sense. And when you watch it in the theater, you're like, what the fuck just happened? I just watched Man of Steel and got this version of Superman. And then I get here.
Hope.
Yeah, more hopeful.
It's a hope.
I mean,
It's a
even
symbol of
breaking down
hope.
the S
Yeah.
on his chest is the symbol for hope and Kryptonian. And it's like, how do we go from that to a dude willing to kill someone to save his mom? Like, he's Superman. It's like, you could find her, you could circle the earth in like a couple seconds. I think you can find your mom somewhere, So it was just one of those.
Well, and then and then we've all although it was the Bryan Singer version, but when Brandon Routh would fly up into space, he could hear all the voices.
Right.
And then he would zone in on something that he needed to go save and rescue.
Right.
He would pick and choose his battles. And, did he have that kind of effect? Did Henry Cavill's Superman, could he hear shit like that too?
I'm sure.
Is that a comic book thing? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, it's
so how could he have
hearing.
not known where his mother was?
But the moment for me where I was just like, I can't imagine, and I can't see Superman doing this was when, like, right when he was like flying off from Lois after he rescued her from him, he's like, I might have to kill him, flying off. It's like, what? Like, that's the last thing Superman usually says. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So that's where I was kind of like, this sucks, like, because of that. But again, like, I appreciated it more, at least how he got there, by watching the extended version. So I feel like with Zack Snyder, again, I might not completely love his version of Superman. I still want to see what he had envisioned for it at the end of the day.
Well, also because they did the nightmare sequence with Batman and the desert gear and everything, and that alluded to a lot of stuff that like never came to fruition.
Yeah.
And is that stuff going to be in this Snyder's cut?
Yeah, like with the parademons all flying around and like them holding Batman. Yeah, like that's the thing I was wondering was that more of the part 2? Because I remember initially Justice League was going to be split into 2 parts, and
was.
The Steppenwolf was going to be in the first movie, and then Darkseid was going to show up in the second movie. So it's interesting to see like that whole parademon scene. Was that in the second part? Because I guess we are going to see Darkseid or whatever, or Seed or whatever.
Yeah. Darkseid, Darkseid. I don't know how they.
I've been calling him Darkseid forever, but I don't. Some people say it differently. So
Darkseid, whatever. I mean, the I and the E are flipped around or whatever to be cool. Yeah. And wait a minute, and wasn't Darkseid, Darkseid? He came before Thanos in Marvel, right? Like Marvel like copied their version of their guy.
I honestly,
isn't that how it went out?
Well, the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths was what started the whole thing, like the whole multi-comic like event, and DC just did that so they could clean the slate, because they had so much. Because when they were polling readers, they were basically saying the reason why they don't get into comics is because there's so much history that they don't have the time to like try, especially back in the day, or before comic books became really a big thing and was kind of counterculture a long time ago, because you were a nerd if you're wearing because when I was in high school wearing a Spider-Man shirt, I was a nerd, so it's cool, everyone wears them. But so it's like the Crisis on Infinite Earths, it was the whole point of that was to clean their slate, because people were, it was hard for people to get into the comic books because they couldn't read all these back issues to get caught up, and they had all these sort of, over the years, different writers came in and created alternate realities and all this. So the Crisis on Infinite Earths was looked at as a way to sort of clean house, unify all the multiverses into one, and then kind of go from there as sort of a reboot of the whole DC universe. And that did so well. It took them a year. It was like over 1 year they released it. So people like reading the comics had to wait almost a full year for that whole storyline to play out. And when it was over, it changed everything. And so Marvel took notice of that. And then that's when the Infinity Gauntlet became a thing, because then you started doing the kind of multi-series event things to clean house a little bit too. So yeah, that's sort of the thing with Thanos, but I don't really remember his origin so much. So I don't know if they copied who in that scenario.
Yeah, but it's interesting, I guess like one superhero franchise has to have a bad guy that no one else can touch like Thanos and like Darkseid or Darkseid, however you say his name. And I think I've always said Darkseid when I was a kid.
I mean, it could be that. I don't know. Because when I read stuff in comic books, like that was the thing. When I was growing up, I'd read it in a comic book, and however I thought it sounded in my head is what it was. And now it's like you have YouTube
right now,
and everything.
Now it's all explained to you. Yeah, yeah.
Like, you're wrong. You're wrong. That's not how you say it. I'm like, all right, my bad.
Well, you know, either way, I think I'm really, really interested in seeing now more than ever the Snyder cut. And then, you know, what's funny is people are saying, don't be surprised if you're let down. Like, see, this whole thing could backfire.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be kind of like Batman versus Superman. I mean, no matter what, you know, it's still...
It'll be
It's
dark.
going to be that. I mean, if you didn't love Batman versus Superman, the extended cut, you're probably not going to love the Snyder cut of Justice League either. And again, I'm not saying like I want a whole universe to model the Snyder cut or the Snyderverse or whatever it's called. But I do want to see what the guy envisioned, because what we got was
well, I do too. I do too. And you know, when you find out that the reason he even left the project in the first place wasn't creative problems he was having with Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
His daughter committed suicide.
Yeah.
And he had to step back and walk away from everything and be with his family and get his mind clear and mourn and all that stuff. And so at the same time, you're like, you would think the DC and Warner Brothers would have waited for him, but they didn't. You know, they had deadlines. They had already spent $350 million making his cut, because it was supposed to be 2 films cut into, I mean, it was just insane. I think it was going to go to $500 million total, like the whole budget for the thing.
I'm curious about all that still, though. Like I mean, it's horrible what happened to his kid. And, but just knowing how Hollywood works, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a convenient excuse to let him go, because it seems to me like the way that's
a horrible excuse. They could have fired him if they wanted to.
Well, that's a better way to save face for him. It's like, you know, the tragedy is a good explanation of why he would step back. And maybe the studio didn't so much say that, but was like, you know, you should be doing this right now, and we've got dates to hit, so you should go focus on that, and we'll handle it from here. And pretty much could have said, like, that's how it's going to play out. You know what I'm saying? And so he's like, well, I'm stepping back for my family, because it did seem like, because I remember following the development of that, you know, in real time.
It was like, it was already on like its last legs.
Well, because you had Batman versus Superman come out, and then it, you know, was pretty much not hated, but it didn't get a lot of love from the demographic they were chasing. You know what I'm saying? And so like, and right. So then at the time, Joss Whedon just finishes, you know, Avengers 2, and then he comes on board to do, I think it was Batgirl initially, to write the scripts for that. So he's in the ring. Right, and this was all before that happened. And I guarantee he saw a cut of it, and he had the sentiments of the crowd being like, well, we want a more hopeful, optimistic Superman. So you got executives being like, here's a guy at the time who gave us one of the highest grossing movies, you know, of all time.
Avengers.
Top 5, yeah, with Avengers. And, you know, he just did Avengers 2, so everyone loves what he's done. Why are we not listening to him? And then, you know, I could easily see them, because then he moved quickly from writing Batgirl to, oh, you're now going to take over Justice League. And then the way, and like now hearing it's 80 pages that they redid of Justice League.
That's huge.
He pretty much reshot the entire movie. And then, you know, it just blows me away. So I think that was my big issue with Warner Brothers and DC about that whole thing, is the minute they saw the backlash from Batman versus Superman, they should have hit pause.
They freaked out.
Even though they had like 6 months of development on Justice League, they should have hit pause, because like all this means nothing if the audience doesn't like it, you know, and then pushed it out. And I don't know why everyone's so afraid to push, like if they have a deadline, a date for a movie, why they're so afraid.
Because it's called show business. and it's a business, and they have shareholders, and they have to turn profits. And that's really what it was. It was all, that's where they screwed up. They weren't thinking about the creativity and the content. They were thinking about the dollars, and they were chasing that Avenger money. They were chasing that Marvel money.
But if they do good stuff, they'll
Disney
get
money.
that money. Because if it's good, usually you'll get the money.
People will go see it. Yeah.
So,
speaking of Marvel, there was a report. There was an interview done with Frank Grillo.
Yeah.
Who played, what was he, Bone Crusher or
Crossbones?
Crossbones,
like that.
whatever.
Yeah, I think it's Crossbones.
Yeah. He was part of the
Captain America.
Hail Hydra, Captain America. He was, Well, apparently, like, they're asking him, would you come back? Are you going to do some more Marvel stuff? Blah, 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 blah. And he was like, nah, man. Like, I'm 55. I'm tired and I'm worn out.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because, I just turned 45, and I wake up every morning, and when my knees hit the floor, when my legs hit the floor, both knees pop. It sounds like pop rocks.
Yeah.
And then everything is like, oh my God. And then these guys, they do the superhero training workouts. It's different when you're Chris Hemsworth, you're in your 30s. You start hitting 55.
Yeah.
You start hitting 60. Like, do you really have it in you anymore? And it was refreshing to hear Frank say that he'd rather do, romantic comedies or something like that. That doesn't, same thing would happen with Hugh Jackman, constantly working out as the Wolverine, spending 6 months eating egg whites is just a horrible way to live.
Yeah. I mean, cause I actually just saw him on Billions. He's on that now. And I read that thing too. And I get what he's saying because, and I can see what he means, that the Marvel movies aren't really, I don't want to say this without pissing people off. It's not like it's art. Like, you don't go into a Marvel movie to show off your acting abilities because it is so, it is so like sterilized and broken down, where you might, everything is previs. There's not much room for, spontaneity on the set where you can go in and be an actor and really get into a character. It's a formula, and they got heavily CGI'd formula at that. Like when you're not on a real set, like we saw in the prequels of Star Wars, where you're acting everywhere is a green screen and stuff like that. And when you go and look at the behind the scenes of most of the modern Marvel films, they're pretty much all green screen. Like Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame was mostly green screen. Like all those planets they were on, that was all green screen work. So I could get, if you're just showing up, you got to look a certain way, follow a certain diet, exercise this much, be probably squeaky clean on social media. I mean, with James Gunn's experience, and like, it's, you get in, and you were on the lot when Iron Man 3 came to Wilmington, and how like crazy, security went up, and how they were real hardcore on the studio.
Oh yeah. To get into the stages, you had to have these key card accesses and swipe into the stages, and they would track you on the lot, like where you were. And you had to allow them on your personal laptops at work to install their spyware.
Yeah.
So that they could track if you were leaking stuff to the media. I mean, Marvel they were hardcore.
Right. And so
I was working on Where the Millers with Jennifer Aniston and Jason Sudeikis when Iron Man 3 was shooting in town. So I didn't get to work on it, but I had a lot of friends on it, and it's crazy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, cause I had friends working on Iron Man 3 too, and I just heard all about it, like how the security went crazy on the studio lot. And I mean, so again, it's like, it probably takes all the fun out of it and really makes it more of a job. The crew, they'll always kind of have fun doing what they do, on the sides. But for an actor, I can see why that's probably not as fun. It's great for a payday and to get your brand up there and, get that fame that you probably want. But outside of that, I don't think, I'm sure they love it that all the people love those movies and their characters, but I don't know if they're getting fulfilled as actors doing those kind of movies. So I completely understand what he's saying. You don't go to a Marvel movie to show how great of an actor you are.
Yeah, I mean, when you get Chris Hemsworth, he gets to do a movie like Thor, make a ton of money, and then do a movie like Extraction.
Right.
you know, and that's really how that goes. Did you hear about Netflix and Space Force?
Not really. So catch me up on it.
Well, first of all, I haven't watched it,
I did.
and everybody on social media said it was awful. Did you
I
watch
did
it?
watch it. I was kind of not thrilled that because for me, I'm a huge space nerd. I love space. I love NASA. I love all that stuff. And I kind of felt like, and I get it's a comedy, but it just was kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit that they're going to make fun of it. And probably because the president, created it, that it's all a big joke.
Right.
Whereas if another president had created it, it would probably have been more like For All Mankind on Apple TV, or something glorifying it than making fun of it. And then when you watch it, it's just not, it feels like it's trying too hard. And honestly,
I heard it wasn't funny. I heard a lot of people said it just wasn't funny.
It was.
That's why I've been hesitant to get into it. And then I heard Steve Carell's not even in the whole thing.
He's in every episode. I mean,
Is he in every
episode?
episode?
John Malkovich was the only thing that made that thing good. Like he's the best character in it. I mean, and Steve, not taking away from Steve Carell, he's funny in it. I mean, he has his moments, and he's very much.
Did he dial it in? Was it dialed in?
No, I mean, it felt very much like he was doing Michael Scott in The Army. He was a little more competent than Michael Scott was from The Office, but it was still Michael Scott, essentially.
It was his shtick.
Kind of.
Right.
And I don't know, it just wasn't as funny as The Office. And then also,
Do you think I should watch it? Do you think the wife and I should sit down
I mean,
and watch?
you can check it out. It's only 10 episodes.
She loves, The Office.
Yeah.
Was she like it?
Holly didn't love it like after she saw it. So
Ooh.
she was kind of like, afterwards. So, I mean, it's worth checking out. But a thing I think where they missed it, I think the idea of creating a military branch, I can see where there's humor in that, because just the bureaucracy in Washington is ridiculous. So you can have lots of fun just in that alone, but they went fantastical with it a little bit too much. Because there's a scene where
they went Animal House with it.
Even beyond that, they went unrealistic with it. There's a scene where 3 people get selected to go on this mission at the last minute. That would never happen, ever. Ever. They would have alternates and all that stuff. So that would never happen. And then there's a scene where this lady's in the shuttle going to the moon, I think, or Mars or wherever they were going, and she's got a parrot in her helmet with her. And I'm like, if you would have kept it grounded in reality and just sort of made fun at the ridiculousness of government and all the red tape that's involved with it, that could have been really funny, because that's sort of how The Office was, It grounded in reality and how ridiculous an office environment can be. But this, when you got parrots in someone's helmet, it's you're just being dumb at this point. It's not even, it's like that dumb joke funny that's not even funny.
The writer's room on that. Can you imagine? Hey, we could have a parrot inside someone's helmet. I don't know.
Funny.
Okay, well, maybe we'll check it out. But I think the whole thing that's tripping me out is, Netflix had copywritten Space Force before the United States government had a chance to do it. So now the government, in order to sell merchandise and do things and everything, they have to pay Netflix.
Wow.
Or figure out how to buy the patent, the copyright from them in order to do it. And I think that is hysterical. So I'm just interested to see how that's going to play out and how much Netflix is going to get for the use of Space Force. And you know what? I think the whole idea may not have been made fun of so much if it wasn't the title of what it is, Space Force. I think if you'd have come up with something better, like NASA, National Aeronautics Space Agency, NASA's cool, or administration, that's cool. Right? Space Force. To me, every time I hear it, I think of Space Ghost. Space Ghost.
Well,
I'm like, really?
If I was them, I would rebrand and call it the military something else, because you can't have that kind of bullshit where you're having to pay someone. A government shouldn't be paying anyone to be the name of their thing to do stuff for it. That's ridiculous. So Change it to
Well,
Star Force or some stupid stuff like that. I don't know.
Oh God, Star Wars. Just change it to Star Wars.
Yeah, it could. That would be better.
Something. Well, no, Lucasfilm would be down them in a heartbeat. I had no idea that they were doing another Evil Dead film. Did you know about this?
I saw an Evil Dead Now post show up in my feed, but I was just like, I didn't even click on it because I was like, I'd heard Bruce Campbell officially said he was done with Ash. So once he said he was done, I was done.
after the Stars show, right?
Yeah,
That
Ash
was
versus Evil Dead.
Ash versus the Evil Dead, and well, apparently he's coming back.
Oh,
to do Evil Dead Now, and Sam Raimi handpicked the director who's directing this new one, and I'm just like, how is that going to work? I mean, I like the Evil Dead 2 and I like Army of Darkness. I couldn't get into the Stars show. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get into it. Did you like it?
I tried watching the Stars show and it had, I think because it wasn't Ash, it was like him and his two sidekicks. And then they kind of, that for me, it's like, because what made funny was just watching Ash being dropped into stupid situations. Like that to me is like, that's what I loved about Army of Darkness, was just watching him just be a dick to all these people.
A fish out of water.
Because he just wants to, he's like a selfish dick. He just wants to get home and he doesn't give a shit who he screws over to do it. You know, he kind of feels bad in the end to make it right. But I mean, that's what was great about Armies of Darkness and what was so fun about how they morphed the Ash character from just some guy trying to survive in a cabin, you know, in the first Evil Dead to a little more campy in Evil Dead 2 to Army of Darkness, which is more of a comedy than a horror movie. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean, to me, with the whole the skeletons and the Three Stooges, point. I mean, it's funny because you didn't have to see the first two Evil Dead films. Although, if you missed Evil Dead 2, you missed a hell of a movie.
Him going insane in the cabin. Oh, that's gold.
Oh my God, all the different angles and everything. But I mean, and then, but the way they recapped the first two movies in the first 3 or 4 minutes of Army of Darkness, you know, you didn't have to see the other two to get into this one. And it was a standalone movie on its own. You understood everything. I had to cut my hand off, you know, and all that. I mean, it was just, you know, they explained it. And Army or Evil Dead Now, I'm kind of like, well, after Ash versus the Evil Dead, it's like, where do you go with it? He's already gone back in time to fight the Deadites and then back into the future, into his time. And then it's like, where do you go? You know, they already tried to reboot it as a hardcore horror film and that tanked at the box office. Nobody wanted to go see that. You know, so I'm worried that they're jumping the shark again and again on this thing. But is it because people just love Bruce Campbell and they love that property and Sam Raimi? It's almost like Sam Raimi, that was what got him his big start in the film industry. And even though he's doing all the stuff he's doing now, and then what's the superhero film he's directing now?
I don't even know.
It's not another. He's directing a Thor. He got tapped to direct something for Marvel.
I vaguely remember that. Was it Spider-Man? I thought he was something to do with Spider-Man, but I could be wrong.
Venom? No,
maybe Venom. It might have been that.
The new Well, either way, I feel like he's done all this stuff, but he still, for some reason, keeps tinkering in this world. It's almost like Lucas. Like Lucas had done a couple of other films, but he could never let go of the Star Wars universe. And I feel like the Deadites and all this kind of stuff and the Book of the Dead and everything with Sam Raimi is he can't let go.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, Bruce Campbell is what makes those movies worth watching. I mean, Sam Raimi did a great job directing, but like for me, it was Bruce Campbell is why I watched them at the end of the day, not because of directing choices or whatever, other than the choice to let him be funny and, you know, be a star. But I do think like that's why the reboot failed, because, you know, it's just some people getting killed in a cabin in the woods. You've seen that movie a million times, but Bruce Campbell, and that's why Evil Dead 2 stood out so much, because it was a horror film, but it also had some campy, fun moments in it. So you kind of got both things, but because the parts that were scary were really kind of scary, like, and then, but then when it was funny, it was really kind of like absurdly funny, like when he's looking in the hole,
Dead by Dawn.
the hand that runs into the wall, and he's like looking through the hole, and then all of a sudden blood just comes pouring out of it because it's like he shoots it in the wall, and I think blood starts leaking out, and he goes to look to see if he killed it.
It's in his mouth.
Yeah, I mean, just that's ridiculous, but it's also fucking hilarious at the same time. So that's what was so great about it.
And it was the Evil Dead 2 when the one took her head off and in the stop motion, it was claymation, and she like rolled it to her hand and rolled it back and put it back on. I mean,
and our favorite line, there's something down here. That still makes me laugh.
They throw him down. There's something down. He's trying to get.
No, so like Bruce Campbell makes those movies, and it's like,
yeah, you can't make an Evil Dead property without him.
And I think that's why.
But do we want? It's almost like Indiana Jones. Like, do we want to see an 80-year-old Bruce Campbell still fighting the Deadites at some point? Well, that actually might. Be good.
I think that's why the show didn't do so hot, because it took more of the spotlight off of Ash and put it on his companions that were in it. And that's fine, I guess. In a show you can't just have one guy all the time without anyone to interact with. But I do think that's sort of what was the magic of those other movies, was he was the star of the movie and all the stories and everything focused on him, like that he was the main focus of the movie. So I think if they go back to that and give us something like Evil Dead, not Evil Dead, but Army of Darkness with, Evil Dead Now, that would be amazing. I would love that.
Well, it's in the works. So we'll have to see how it plays out. Did you see the Bill and Ted's trailer?
Yes, I did.
What'd you think?
Tell me your thoughts. Like too late. I feel like they waited too long to make that movie. I mean, I was mildly entertained by it, but it's like, for me, weird watching Keanu act like he's 20 again when he's clearly like in his 50s or whatever. And I've just watched him in John Wick just decimate people, so it's like weird to see him be this kind of doofy idiot again. And then it's just, I don't know, man. I think it's too late. I don't know if the kids today will even care about it.
Well, I mean, obviously, they made it for us, who went and saw the first two films in the theater. And I think it just was this one gestating project for decades, trying to get it off the ground, and I watched that whole trailer, and I didn't laugh until the end with the bodysuits when they were in jail, when they met each other. The whole premise that they need to go into the future to find out the song that they wrote because they didn't write the song yet. And then they see themselves and they're in prison, and they were jacked with those rubber like muscle suits. That was the only thing that made me laugh in the trailer.
Yeah, I mean,
and I went, ooh, I feel like I should have. And even when like Death and all them were like I didn't get the visceral reaction I had when I was 12.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I think if he would have done it after The Matrix, probably would have done a lot better, because he had the money. I mean, he made so much money, he gave it as bonus checks to crew members. So it's like he was
well, you hear that. I don't know if that's actually real.
That's true.
I mean, that's a rumor.
That's a rumor. But I mean, he clearly made enough money and after that, he had enough influence where he probably could have got that done if he really wanted to do it after The Matrix. And that probably would have been better. But I mean, well, that's like 30 years ago. Like who, like I'm old enough now where that kind of humor doesn't really appeal to me as much. It's sort of like Adam Sandler. He was amazing when I was younger, but older, like his shtick wore off. Like, as you get older,
yeah,
like, I don't find this funny like I used to. So,
yeah, I know, that's weird.
Growing up,
so I'm a little nervous for it, and I'm almost wondering if VOD might be the way to go and not do a release in theaters on that one.
I mean, I feel like they're gonna release it to theaters. I'll be surprised if it does well. Like I think it'll probably generate some money, but I don't think it's gonna be a huge hit. But who knows? It might.
Well, if anything, the budget's probably small.
Yeah. I mean,
I would say I'd say it's probably like a $40 million movie. So they don't have much to cover the spread.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And considering, like, we've talked about how with technology getting so cheap now, you could probably make, like, they have probably technology at a place where they could make a cheap movie that, you know, not have to invest so much CGI and stuff like that into.
So I wanted to spend the last couple minutes touching on some things that have been going on. I mean, we all know we've got a lot of stuff going on in the world right now with COVID-19 and with the protests for injustice. But this, you know, the cancel culture is really, they're going after people left and right. You know, this guy, Hartley Sawyer from the, what is it? That's your show, The Flash.
Yeah.
What's his character?
He was the elongated man. It was basically like Plastic Man, like the stretchy, which I personally hated that character. Like,
and he was on it for like 2 seasons, right?
Maybe more than that.
I mean, that's what I read. And they fired him because of some tweets from 2014.
Right.
And they were misogynist. I went back, you know, because of course, you know, somebody had a thread with all of the different tweets that he had put. Some of them were like, okay, dude, that's like, you know, he's like 15 years old or 16 years old, drunk one night at 3 a.m. and he sends out something or whatever. And then, but then like one of them, I laughed, but I felt so bad, but like, I couldn't understand where his mindset was. I laughed not because I agreed with it, but one of his tweets was, it was like at 3:24 in the afternoon, just a random tweet that was like, if I was married, I'd beat my wife right now, LOL. And I just thought, like, who sends that out?
Well, I think it's sort of the same thing with like James Gunn, because back then, no one ever thought you could be fired, really, even in 2014, because cancel culture hadn't ramped up to the point where, like,
until the Me Too movement.
Really, I mean, because like, and that's the thing is like people would just say stuff for shock value to get people talking. It's like, because you joke around and say stuff like, sometimes you got to throw chum in the water just to, like, you know, stir up the pot.
Yeah.
And I think people would just say, and again, it's hard to take someone's real, like, to hold them to a meaning from like a 140 character tweet. You know, it's like, you don't know what intent they had on that. I mean, he might have just been saying something stupid as a joke, and it might have just been for a friend, because no one really took it as one day these are going to come back and be used to get me fired, you know? Because if that was the case, no one would have ever Twitter probably wouldn't even been popular if people knew it would be weaponized against them later on, you know? So
yeah.
So
because there's a lot of things that people just throw out there that you're like, oh yeah, that's going to come back to bite you, you know? But at the same time, if you're 15 years old and now you're like, it's 5 years later, 6 or 7 years later, you're 21. When you said something when you were 15 and you're 21 now, you're on a hit television show and you were just being a smart ass.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't understand how how the people, the powers that be that shut stuff down, they don't weigh out like, the kid was a 15-year-old kid who was playing video games and was drinking and chumming up. And I mean, obviously a 15-year-old isn't going to be married. Right. And why would he beat his, I mean, it's like, you have to, he was just, so I'm not defending the guy. I'm just saying it's just really crazy. Cause then you look at, we were talking about this earlier, they canceled the show Cops after 33 years, 33 seasons. Cops was on since I was a kid. I'll be honest with you. I haven't watched the show Cops probably ever in the last
I didn't know
20
it was
years.
Still on. Like, I hadn't watched it since the 90s, so I didn't even know it was still a thing.
And I didn't even think about the show until Bad Boys for Life came out, when they started up with the song again. Because that was really why anybody ever watched Cops in the first place, because of the song. Bad boy, what you gonna do? Yeah. And then, but now they've canceled it, and I almost feel like it was Paramount took an opportunity to just get rid of something they have been throwing money at for 33 years. Yeah. Because of the current climate. And then, then you look at, Fox, I think it's on Fox, is LA's Finest, is a show about cops. They've delayed going into production into season 3.
Yeah.
Because of everything that's going on right now. And So it's just, and then you got Warner Brothers, Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam aren't going to have their, Elmer Fudd's no longer a hunter. He's not going to have his shotgun with him. And Yosemite Sam's not going to have his pirate guns or his cowboy guns. There's no more no more guns for Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam. And then, it's funny because I worked on a show for HBO called Little Britain USA, which was, it was a show that ran from the 80s on up over in Europe called Little Britain. And now they've pulled that off the air because they had a couple of episodes where they did blackface. But if you've ever watched Little Britain, they're always playing sketch comedy characters and putting full body suits on, fat suits, all sorts of stuff. So it was in a comical setting. It's almost like, Robert Downey Jr.,
Tropic
when he
Thunder.
did Tropic Thunder. And I'm just so surprised that the outrage isn't there for that, but it's there for this and so on and so on. And then there was this other comedian down in Australia that had a comedy show, and 4 of his episodes where he did blackface have been pulled from all the episodes of his show.
Yeah.
They're just taken off the air. And so it's just a weird, it's not a weird time to be in. But it's just, it's when you go on Disney Plus and you watch a show from back in the day, it gives you a disclaimer.
Yeah.
The cartoon characters are smoking cigarettes or something, at the top, like this was shot during a time when, and then people were getting all crazy because Gone with the Wind had just been pulled down from HBO Max, but I think it's because they're restoring it and they're gonna put out the 4K, 3D or scanned, wet scanned original print, cleaned up, the whole 9 yards. They're not going to edit it or anything, but people are like, well, it's the current climate, you can't own slaves or whatever, Gone with the Wind back. And we get all that, but I think in general, they should just have these disclaimers before shows that are dated, television movies that are dated from back in the day, because somebody could be upset about anything, that could have gone down in the 80s or something like that. And so it's just really odd. It's just a really weird time right now. And I hope that, the world can heal and get back on track, but it's just, I don't even know where to go with it,
Well, I'm just not a big fan of censorship, period. I think it's a scary territory when you start censoring people and things, because where does it stop? And who's censoring? Like, who's to say that person's right? And then what if the dynamic flips and then the other group is censoring? I think that's sort of what's great about America in the, with freedom of speech, is allowing everyone, because like Joe Rogan has a great thing he always says where, let everything be out there because good ideas usually beat bad ideas. And I do think, and you should be able to hear all opinions or voices and be able to be like, that guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's saying. Or like, I don't agree with that. I still think you should do that. And especially with movies and TV, I mean, I think it's important for people to, if it's something's blatantly racist, get rid of it, but if it's something like, these were the times, people should see that so they can see how much we've progressed. Because if you, wash all that away and then people are like, this is how bad it was back then, they have no frame of reference of what you were talking about. Whereas,
yeah, I mean, and if you look at like a television show like All in the Family, that would never fly today.
Yeah.
You could never get All in the Family on television today. Never, ever, ever, ever. And even when they did that reboot of it, where they did one episode and they had like, what's his name played Archie Bunker. His name's slipping me. Woody from Cheers.
Oh yeah. I vaguely remember something about that back in the day, but.
Well, no, I mean, it was just literally last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did one episode of All in the Family and one episode of The Jeffersons, and Jamie Foxx played.
Was that live or something?
It was live. Those live shows. Yeah, it was Woody Harrelson. That's who it was. It was Woody Harrelson, which I thought was miscast. They should have gotten somebody that looked more like Carol O'Connor. But I just, it's just, I don't know. I'm when it comes to stuff like, it's like what Joe Rogan had said something very similar I always say is like when they want to talk about banning the rebel flag, I always say, no, we need to see the people waving them so we know where the assholes are. I mean, that's just like, the minute you get rid of something like that, then the people go hide under the rocks.
Well,
you don't know who they are.
The biggest problem,
and it's important. It's important for us to see, who these people are. But then it looks like, there was an op-ed in the Washington Post about, they should cancel all cop shows, special law and order, special victims unit, all these procedurals, all this other kind of stuff. They're just, cancel all the cop movies and everything. And, I've got my ballistic cop script that I've been shopping around. My agent's been shopping around, for a couple of years now, trying to get that off the ground. And so now, they want to, cancel everything like, Lethal Weapon because, they're good cops in Lethal Weapon, but they have to break the rules in order to solve the capers. So they're not doing it proper. Right. It's like there's no drama, like you got to have an action film. You got to have something like Lethal Weapon or, these movies. And when you start going down that rabbit hole, it's a scary place to go.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see that, the world is changing. But I feel like with the cancel culture thing, it's getting a little crazy, especially when you're taking this guy, off the Flash, and he's done 2 or 3 seasons, and he's ready to go, and he's excited, and then he's having to put out an apology, and he loses his livelihood altogether, and then like now no one will touch him.
Well, I'm not a fan of this because it just seems like little babies on the internet crying and demanding things. And you don't do that as a parent, or good parents don't just give their kids everything they want because they'll ask for everything. And that's sort of where we're at now. It's like, and also it's sort of desensitizing from real crime or real bad things. Cause we kind of saw this in the Me Too movement where everybody was Me Too'd, it seemed like, and you're taking like for like the Al Franken thing was sort of like, he got Me Too'd, but comparing him to what Harvey Weinstein did is fucking ridiculous. Cause
you can't.
It was like, cause Harvey Weinstein was a fucking rapist and gross. Like he was a piece of shit that deserved not to be around anymore. And so it's like,
totally.
So when you basically make them all have the same weight in a way, I'm not saying like what he did was okay either, but to get him out of Congress because of that is a little ridiculous.
Oh, come on. Look, I saw that picture where she's passed out in the C-130 and he's like, he wasn't his hand,
you could see the shadow under his hands where he clearly wasn't touching them.
Al Franken was like not touching them, but yeah, I mean, and I just like, for me, I think like, especially a 15-year-old who's now a 21-year-old or whatever on a television show, the mind of a 15-year-old who doesn't even have a driver's license yet to drive a car. We were all 15 years old. It's like to hold people completely to what they said 6-7 years ago. And we've had these conversations before. There's like only like 38 million people on Twitter.
Right.
And we've got 340 million people in the United States. Right. And so you just got a very small minority of people screaming at another small minority of people.
Right. It's not real life.
Right. And Twitter's not real life, and people are in their bubbles.
Right.
And, so it's a shame that like
these fringe groups basically dictating how businesses are run, because basically at this point, all it takes is a handful of people to go scream at them about
or start a petition that gets 3,000 signatures.
And they want to make money. So they immediately apologize, which gives that group power in a way. And so that you just keep seeing it get more extreme and more extreme to the point now where people are literally being fired from stuff for, offending, or someone who deems being offended. It's like, well, you could say that about everything. Someone could be offended literally by almost everything. Who's to say they're right?
Dude, somebody could be offended by this show.
Oh, I'm sure there's people offended by this. Like, just by us talking.
Yeah.
Like, there's you can't, it's like, it's sort of like world peace. We all want it, but it's never going to happen because people are flawed, and that's just human nature. We all are striving to be better. Like, that's the thing, and it's a long road to get there. It's not Star Trek yet, so.
And this is why I'm kind of happy there is one light in this world right now, and it's the BTS army.
Yeah.
And BTS, I hate to say, I mean, look, I'm not going to say I hate to say it. The BTS, that band and what they do and the spiritual stuff that they put out about being kind and being good to people and all this kind of stuff is so good. And I don't know if you saw, I know your sister did, where they jumped on Twitter when, you know, the Black Lives Matter was out there, but then the white supremacists started trending like White Lives Matter, and BTS, you know,
ratioed them out,
took the hashtag and just shielded them out and just put nothing but BTS content up about love and all this kind of stuff in their music videos. And they literally like just stole that entire hashtag and watered it down to the point where like they gave up on it.
Right.
And they've done it 2 other times. There was another one that they grabbed the other day that was getting steam, and they just like destroyed it. And they're a global movement, and they just want to be kind. And I think that's really kind of cool. And I'm excited that, you know, we've got the other channel, BTS Reactor, where I do a lot of BTS reactions. And there's over 30 BTS reactions over on BTS Reactor. We'll make sure we put that in the comment section below, or the description below, so people can go link to that if they want to. But I you know, and I got to thank your sister for turning me on to BTS too, because I know my first BTS reaction was crazy because I really didn't know what I was looking at.
Right.
And I was borderline, you know, like making fun of it because I didn't understand it. And then of course, when the BTS army like embraced my channel and like started blowing up my comment section and started explaining things to me, that's when I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'll do another one. I'll do it. And then now all of a sudden, you know,
they are,
you know, I know all, I know the songs. Yeah. You know, I know all the, you know, and all the bands. I've got my own bias, you know, and stuff like that. And it's pretty cool, man. I just, this is like episode, 6 or 7 of the podcast. I just haven't had a chance to talk about BTS and just thank them and thank the BTS army for just, being such a positive influence in the world, because we damn sure can't keep going the way we're going. So maybe we should listen to all the K-pop bands in South Korea that are all positive.
Well, I mean, I'll say just watching the comments from the, you know, BTS army people in your videos, they definitely are very nice, like very positive, nice people.
Yeah, because you could go over to other people's channels and they're ranting and raving and going nuts. You know, whether it's politics or this, that, and the other, or just ripping down Star Wars. Like Star Wars fans are almost vile compared to like, you know, the BTS. They're all like angels compared to like Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
Because they get in their camps and then they don't budge. We're guilty of that too.
Oh, totally.
But I don't rip people down on their pages and stuff.
No.
But yeah, it's really nice to see in the comment section all the BTS army.
Yeah, they're
being kind and good people.
Yeah, it's nice to know that still exists out there somewhere. People just wanting to be nice to each other.
People just wanting to be nice to each other. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they can get some airplay. If they got airplay in the United States.
Yeah. You've been saying that for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. BTS needs serious airplay.
I'm honestly shocked that they're not, because as big as they are globally, it's kind of insane that
they're the #1 band in the world.
So it's kind of weird you never hear them on the radio, like ever.
They released 3 albums that went to #1 in 1 year. No other band has ever done that except the Beatles. And BTS did that.
Wow.
Like, you got to admit, like, these guys they're off the chain. And, you know, you may occasionally hear them in Target or Walmart.
Right.
In their Muzak playlist. But the airwaves, I think they're afraid to put them on here because people would do what they do globally.
Yeah.
And they have a fan base in the United States. It's insane.
Yeah. Big one.
But if they got airplay, I think people are scared that if they got airplay, they would literally take over like they do globally. I think there's a lot of artists that are sweating that because they don't sell like, you know, Beyonce. None of these people sell like BTS.
Well, it's because, I mean, everyone kind of shits on everybody. Like, that's kind of the American shtick, is like just shitting on somebody else. And it's weird when you have a group who's the opposite of that, just trying to be positive and like put that out in the world. And so it is a little different. Maybe that's, says something about our country, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do
We're a
think
bunch of
people,
selfish assholes that suck.
but I do think there's a large majority in this country that do want hope and positive messages. We just don't see it as much because I guess it doesn't sell as well. But yeah.
Well, I hope people go over and check out my other channel. And once again, Stu, I appreciate you chumming it out with me today.
Yeah.
And it was a good show.
Yeah, man.